Hi again, here we are to talk about WordPress, and what I'd like to talk about in this next video is setting up the footer with what they call widgets or a dynamic sidebar. Okay, so widget and dynamic sidebar are the same thing. Essentially, the widgets are things like a list of categories, a list of pages, some text, a list of most recent comments or most recent posts. And you can place these anywhere in your theme, okay? And what I'd like to do is I'd like to create 4 columns at the bottom above the footer here and below the content, like right in here. And, by setting up the widgets and having these 4 columns here where they display, my client will be able to put any information they want in there because they'll be able to edit the widget from the admin panel. So imagine I set up the columns myself manually. Then if my client wanted to change them, then they'd have to call me up and have me change them. But if I do it with this widget system, then they can just go into the admin panel and edit the content in the columns down here at the bottom themselves, right? And just so you get an idea of what we're doing, so far this is what I have. I got my big image here, I got these 3 images, and then I don't have any content here yet. But then I'm going to have these 4 columns, right? And this is what I want to put in right now. So this is the footer that we have, and I want to add 4 columns above that footer, and each one of these will contain a widget, and then the widgets will be customizable through the admin panel, okay? So to use the widget, it's the same process as using the, or very similar to creating a menu, okay? So essentially there's 3 parts. You need to register a widget with your functions PHP, and then you need to configure the widget in the admin panel, and then you need to define a location for the widget to display in your theme. Okay? You can read about the widgets here on the WordPress site. You can look up the function register sidebar. Okay? And then there's another function that goes with this called dynamic sidebar, and I think it's down here at the bottom somewhere in this list. Actually, I don't see it there, but oh yeah, there it is, dynamic sidebar. So the register sidebar, we put in our functions PHP, and it registers a sidebar widget, okay? And then dynamic sidebar we use in our theme to display the widget, okay? I've put the code in a gist here, and I'll put a link to this in the video, okay, in the comments for the video. And here's the code that we need. There's a couple comments here and a link to the information on the WordPress site. So the first thing we need to do is there's 2 parts here. There's, this part up here that says, the code below goes into functions PHP, and then this code right here, add this to your theme to display the widget. So this is going to go into our theme, this line, and then these lines here are going to go into our functions PHP. So what I'm going to do is copy this little block right here and switch over to my functions PHP. So here we are at functions PHP. And what I'm going to do is make a little space here. Let's make sure we put this in a good spot, right? So I'll put it here right below add theme support post thumbnails. So I'll paste it. Okay. And what this has in it is 3 options, right? So, and there's a couple more options for register sidebar, and you can look those up on the information on the WordPress Codex. But these are the only ones that are required. And actually, I don't even think that this is required. I think really all you need is just a name, So what does this mean? Well, this is an array, and then it has 3 items in it that are grouped with a property name and a value, okay? And so the property name here is name, and then the value is footer column 1, okay? And then it gets an ID, which has a value of footer column 1, okay? So the name is a name that's displayed in the admin panel. The ID is a name that's used in code. I think this widget will get this as an ID name, so we can use that to style it or target this widget with JavaScript or something, right? And then the description appears underneath the name in the admin panel to kind of give you a little information about where this widget is or what it's what it should be used for, right? So anyway, so there's my code there, right? And we have to make sure that we follow this pattern. So if you want to add any other options here, you can change the name if you want, okay? you could change any of these values, but remember that these are going to be in the property name, equal arrow, right? So this little symbol, and then the value, and then a comma, right? And then the next one's going to be the same. It's going to be the property name or key value, the equal and the arrow, and then the value for that key, comma, and then the next pattern, right? Key, value, and then if you have another one, you'd add a comma here and put the next one on the next line, right? So anyway, so we've got that, and once I save it, and then I go back to my site here, and what I'll do is I'll go to the admin panel, and now in the admin panel, you should see an option for widgets, right? And when I click on widgets here, you'll see it says footer column 1, and then it says footer column 1. Well, what are we seeing here? What we're seeing is the name of the widget in bold at the top right here, and underneath it you're seeing the description for the widget. So that's the description, right? The ID you don't see here, but in code it'll show up as an ID name, okay? So anyway, so there's our widget, right? Now these are the widgets here. These are like the little widgets that you can add to this widget area, right? And so you can grab any one of these items and just drag it in here. You could put archives or categories or meta, right? Maybe I'll grab categories and I'll drop it in there, right? And you can add more than one of these. So you could put a calendar in here. You could put a custom menu there. And you can drag them off too. So I can just drag those guys back out of there and I can just have categories, right? And you don't even need to really save. As soon as you drag those in there, WordPress kind of knows that that widget owns this little, or belongs to this widget area, okay? And you can have more widget areas in here too. So I've just defined one so far, okay? So now the next part of the last part of our journey here, right, is to add the widget to the theme. So we've done the first two steps. We've created the widget or defined the widget in functions PHP, and now we've configured the widget in the admin panel, and now the last step is to say, or to at least to tell WordPress through our theme where to display this widget in the theme, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to use this last line of code here, right? It says dynamic sidebar, right? We're going to use this line of code in our theme file. And like I said before, I want to put this widget in my footer. So I'm going to go get footer PHP. And my footer right now looks like this. And this right here is the last line on the page, right? So it's got template designed by and the date and the RSS and stuff. So what I want to do is I want to put the widget up here. I want to put 4 columns above this thing, okay? So probably to make this work out best, what I should do is I should make this, give this a class grid 100, so I know that this area is going to be 100% grid. And then above it, I'll add another div and call this one grid 25, right? So this will be a 25% grid. And then inside here, I'm going to paste the code from the gist. So it should say PHP dynamic sidebar and then footer column 1. Now note that this is the name. It's got to be spelled exactly like the name that you assign to the footer here next to name. Okay, so this is the name and this has to match exactly what we have here. Okay, and that way WordPress knows to take the widget that you created with this name and any widget items you added to this area and place them here in our theme. Okay, so we'll save this now and we'll refresh our site here. So I'll go back to WordPress, and oh look, there's my category widget shows up. Okay, and so you can have as many of these as you like, and like I said, I want to have 4 columns down here. So what I'm going to do is I'll define them first in functions. Okay, so I'll just copy this register sidebar and I'll paste it here, and what I want to do is change it to column number 2. Okay, and I'll change the ID and I'll change the description, and then I'll do it again. So now I have 3 of them, and I'll name this one number 3. and 3, and then I'll make a fourth one, right? Remember, I want to have 4 columns, right? And I'll call this one number 4. So these names all have to be unique, right? We can't create 2 of these with the same name. That would create a problem, right? So anyway, so there's my 4 columns, right? And you can give these any names you want. So if you want to make a more descriptive name or give a better description here, you can fill it in, with any text that you want. And again, you'll see this description in the admin panel, right? So now our next step is to create the 4 columns here, right? So this is my first column, grid 25. I'll just copy the whole thing, paste it. It'll be grid 25, but this one's going to display footer column number 2. So I'll use the name of one of my other widgets, right? Or one of the other widgets that I registered. And then this will be column number 3. And I'll paste it a third time and name it column number 4. So anyway, so there's my columns, right? And now again, we've done 2 of the 3 steps, right? In functions PHP, I registered these new sidebars, 3 new sidebars, and in footer PHP, I define the location for those sidebars to show up. And then the third step is in the admin panel, I need to configure the widgets. So if I go back to Appearance Widgets, and now you'll see that I've got footer column 1, footer column 2, 3, and 4, right? So now if I want to add some widgets here, I'll just click the little triangle to open these guys up. Maybe this will be categories. The second one will be, I don't know, recent comments. The third one will be, I don't know, let's do tag cloud, right? You could just do anything here, right? And you can change it, right? So my client could come in here and just do this for themselves, and they could modify these. If you want to just put some custom text in there, you can grab a text widget, and it's got a little box where you can fill some text in. I want to add the meta widget, and I think that adds the admin links and stuff, so I'll put that in there, and maybe that'll be useful, right? So anyway, there we go. There's our 4 columns, right? So it should be categories, recent comments, tag cloud, meta. So now let's go to the site and view our amazing work. So there we go. Got categories, recent comments, tags, and meta. Okay, and of course we'll need to style this too. So we haven't styled everything yet, so it's just going to look like the default text. But anyway, that's all functioning, right? So thanks for watching, and I hope that's helpful for everybody.